Okay, Mr. Delia, he's talked about the revenue sources now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, again, that position, he seemed to agree with you about the reduction in the budget. He faltered that, and that's where you stand. But he talked about the revenue sources of the country, and he thinks that depending too much on oil, which has been the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, might be a problem. But the government continues to talk about a diversified economy. And indeed, some people have said that this budget, 2019 budget, is a budget for, how do you call it, a budget of consolidation
Yeah.
to ensure a more diverse economy. How would that work out?
Thank you very much. I mean, look at the promises that we had, or we're still having on agriculture, which is supposed to be a chunk of what the revenue that this country should be focusing on. We have not really seen the figures coming out of that sector that could complement what we have in this economy. Now, like the gentleman just said, around about 53%, it was actually, or is actually coming from the oil sector of the economy. Now, if we rely mainly on that, then of course we're going to be in trouble. Now, the taxes that is coming from the company tax, from VAT, from the customs, all put together, they're still on like 20%. Now, when the Minister of Budget actually made his pronouncement about the figures that actually came in, you could actually begin to ask yourself, I mean, what's going to happen, or what is happening to other sectors? Where is the revenue from all the sectors actually being calculated to actually complement what we're having now? That's one question, because we seem to be more focusing on the revenue coming from the oil sector. We want someone to come out and say, okay, now, the reason why we're having X, Y, Z budget is because we're having ABC revenue coming in. But we have a proposal from all the sectors, i.e. agriculture, the customs, and other taxes from other sources that we have in this country coming in. Mineral resources. Recently, we've been talking about mining and so on and so forth. But what's going to happen to all the sectors? We're not having anybody talking to us about all this. So now, if we're telling us that the revenue, that the money that we have now is going to be lesser than what we have last year, what are the causes of this? If you're talking about the financing of the deficit we had last year, you could actually find out that we only implemented around about 50-something% of what we budgeted last year.
Now, an important part of this is employment. If people have jobs, then you have more people paying taxes.
Yeah.
But unemployment is growing. Is there anywhere in this budget where you read anything about creating more jobs so that more people will now fall into the tax net and revenues to government will increase?
Thank you. It's like you're reading my lips. I mean, I was just going to go into that. I mean, majorly, we should have more people paying taxes, PAYE. But we're having depreciation or reduction or collapsing sector.
Because people are losing their jobs.
People are losing their jobs. So that means when you lose jobs, people are paying less taxes. Corporation taxes are also falling as well. So
companies are shutting down?
Companies are shutting down. So that is minus to the government. Now, the Minister of Labour recently is trying to mend the issues between all the striking factors here and there, and we're not seeing any benefits. We're not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel on all this. Now, if we don't create, how can I put this, a structure whereby everybody will understand this is a budget that we're going to have to implement or put into the economy to create jobs. Look at recently, I think it's Egypt. Was it Egypt or Morocco? They borrowed $1 billion, essentially for job creation and ease of businesses. Now, that's what we should be talking about. Now, we're running short of people paying taxes that comes into government purse. Why don't we, out of the budget's right, we are actually setting aside this amount of money for job creation?
Can you create jobs without infrastructure?
That's another thing.
Electricity.
Electricity. That's another thing. But having said that, I mean, that is one part. You could actually create jobs with less infrastructure. And I can tell you that, look.
How?
Okay, let me give you an example. We have millions of our graduates who actually study sciences, like microbiology, chemistry, and so on and so forth. Do you know how many of all these bucaterias, restaurants, and hotels that we have around the country? Okay? Now, if you go close to all these businesses, local, micro, macro, in all this sector, they actually given us substandard on hygienic food consumption. Okay? Now, and nobody...
That's scary.
It's actually scary. I've been to cafeteria restaurants where you see rats running about and everything. You go to all this local bucateria where they actually cook beside drainages and so on and so forth. Now, why can't we begin to get all these students, these graduates together, all the science graduates together, if it's going to be 3 months or 4 months or 6 months training as health officials? Okay, that is job creation.
Who will be paying them?
Okay, now, who is doing this money market? This 10,000 you're giving to people, it's coming from somewhere. Who's paying Empower? The money is coming from somewhere, and so on and so forth. We have an allocation that goes out to all these people. Why? You could create millions of jobs on that sector, whereby you train people who go, because if we don't do it, the danger is a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. If we begin to contract disease and cholera and so on, food poison, it will affect everything generally. So when we do that, that's one sector. I'm just saying that's one area where you could create jobs without infrastructure.
Yeah.
And there are other areas as well where you begin to do. But like I said, the key thing is infrastructure, like good roads, whereby people could move their commodities and stuff from the farm to the market. Electricity, whereby you have, because microeconomy is the base of every successful economy. And if you don't have electricity for all our artisans and local businessmen and women to actually thrive, then we're not going anywhere.
The fact that government says they're focused on rebuilding the infrastructure, but Michael here says jobs can be created without necessarily building infrastructure. But just to remind you also, when you talked about the 2.3 million barrels per day that's put into the budget, please remember that it also includes condensate and local refining crude, which the budget also emphasizes on. So remember that bit as you do your analysis. So how can we carry on building infrastructure, creating more jobs with the kind of budget and revenue that we have?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll use education, which Mr. Michael used as an example. From the 2019 budget, about 640 billion naira is what government earmarked for recurrent expenditure. And in economics, recurrent means consumption. For capital expenditure is only 47 billion. Now, if we are spending 460 billion in recurrent, which means consumption, and you're spending only 10% or 11% arguably of that on capital expenditure, where will the job come from? Where will the job come from? See, countries have experimented things. China in the 60s, 50s, 60s was a very poor country. And China's focus was on the people. How do we transfer money to our people? How do we encourage them to go to bucateria and sell? Those were the things China was looking at. But China understood that to empower our people, it is the skill and the environment we provide for them that will generate income. Those people in themselves will have some fun, and they will now enhance the market by making effective demand. It is not just for them to have fun, that they will rely on other people to bring fun for them. So, I mean, clearly, infrastructure is very critical. And when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about power essentially, and how do we connect our roads, our farm, because government is focused on agriculture. How do we connect the farms to the marketplace? How do we connect the farms to the city centers so that it facilitates trade? Most of the produce that you have in the rural community, most of them don't get to the city center on time. And before they get there, they see people who come around, buy them at a very low prices. And that is why you have quite a number of you have a lot of poor people that are rural poor with higher percentage compared with urban poor. And that's why the number of poor people in Nigeria might have not reduced significantly compared to what happened in India. That's why India, again, surpassed Nigeria in terms of lifting more people, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. So essentially, infrastructure is key, but what is also key in infrastructure is human capital development. Any country that have tried to put this side by side will see the light of the day. I'll give you another instance of United Arab Emirates, and to see Dubai particularly as a classical example. A country that dreamed to build Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, with only 1.5 billion naira. That was the money spent to build Burj Khalifa. The surrounding environment, including the dancing fountain, which many Nigerians and in fact many Africans and the rest of the world wants to go and see, with only $600 million. Combine everything together with the cost of building the Burj Khalifa, it comes to about 2.1 billion. And this is a statement from the Prince of Dubai in his book, and also in the statement he has made over time. The question is, with $2.1 billion, a country delivered in 4 years, 4 years, the tallest building in the world. To go into Burj Khalifa, it is not the kingdom of God, though, but to enter that Burj Khalifa, you pay 50 dirham, 500 dirham, equivalent of 50,000 naira. And there is a queue. This is festive period. If you go now, you will possibly book for January before you can enter. So the question is, what is wrong with us? In Nigeria, we have a lot of tourist centers for state to generate more to have more internal generated revenue. We have a lot of things we could do. I give you another instance. We said we are looking for jobs. We have not connected money we are going to pay university to the industry. Because the job is not what government will create, the job is what private sector will create. How many of the research work made by professors and doctors in the university are being purchased directly by industry, by the marketplace, so that they can improve output? When they improve output, they will need more capacity. That's how country runs. But if you want to practice political socialism, then we have to give people money themselves. So we are spending so much, apart from Ministry of Interior, that is getting the largest proportion of recurrent expenditure. The next ministry that is getting is Ministry of Education. So government is voting quite a number of funds. Of course, might not be enough at the end of the day when you compare about 7% to what UNESCO calls 26% requirement. So there will be no jobs. We are not building more infrastructure. Only 47 billion for infrastructure, as against what is required. At least you need for infrastructure for Nigeria, you need more than 500 billion on an annual basis. But if you are voting less than 10% of what is required on infrastructure, then how do you educate people? So we have 13.5 million people out of school children at 2016, according to UNICEF, with some Nigeria agencies. We will keep having that until we have found ways of connecting the public sector to the private sector. So we can connect our university, which is the bedrock of our development, which will serve as miracle of our development and growth. There are a lot of work. Go to university and polytechnics. So they are on strike now. How do we get them back to work? And perhaps give some target of saying, in industry, we have bottled water companies, we have a lot of schools and a lot of departments and faculties in several universities in Nigeria that have done research. But this research hand on their shelves. So job will not come until we can innovate and perhaps use the best brain we have in the university to sell to the marketplace and educate them, or now we can become better as a country.